Keanu Reeves was sitting in his car in a small parking lot next to an old library. Suddenly, someone knocked on his window. A little girl with blue eyes spoke to Keanu, and what she said struck him right in the heart. Friends, let us know in the comments under what conditions you watch this video. In the background, while working, or during lunch. Also, don't forget to subscribe, because tomorrow another emotional story will be waiting for you. Los Angeles was dissolving into the evening, not in the bright, urban, noisy sense shown on billboards or Hollywood movie trailers. This was a different Los Angeles. Quiet. Dusty. In a neighborhood where time moved differently, more slowly. Old trees swayed in the warm breeze, and the windows of the old library glowed softly with yellow light, like the eyes of a living creature that knew more than it let on. Next to the building was a small parking lot, cracks in the asphalt, faded parking lines, a couple of giant laurel trees bending over the cars as if listening to what their engines whispered after a long day. In one of the outer spots, away from the entrance, stood a black car. Modest, almost invisible, just like its owner. Inside, behind tinted windows, sat a man. He didn't attract attention, and that's exactly what made him recognizable. Keanu Reeves, in a simple t-shirt, dark jacket and jeans, with a slightly unkempt beard and a tired but gentle gaze. He was sitting behind the wheel, holding an old book, a volume he had read before, yet couldn't tear himself away from. Everything about him, from his posture to the silent expression on his face, said one thing. He came here not as a star, not as a symbol, but as a man who needed silence. A space with no film sets, no autograph lines, just words, stories, and memories. He took a sip from a paper cup of coffee resting on the armrest and stared into the page. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. The wind rustled the thin leaves, creating a soft hush like the city breathing. There was something almost meditative in that moment, until a sound shattered the calm like a stone dropped in water. Tap, tap. Keanu looked up, first surprise, then slight tension. The street was already dim, and someone appearing at the window wasn't expected. But then he saw her, a little girl, just tall enough to reach the glass, staring intently inside. She was tiny, no more than 2.5 years old. A dress with smiling green and blue dinosaurs hung a little too loosely on her small frame, and her thin legs and white socks looked delicate against the worn concrete. Her golden curly hair rested on her shoulders, and her large eyes. God, those eyes. Unusually serious for a child. Deep. Calm. Like someone who had seen far more than she should at her age. In her hands, she held a book. Small, a bit worn, with a colorful cover that looked familiar, though Keanu couldn't immediately place it. The girl stood silently. Then, when he fully lowered the window, she leaned a little closer and said softly, almost in a whisper, "You're the friend from my book." Keanu froze. His fingers gently tightened on the steering wheel. It wasn't just a phrase. There was something hauntingly precise in it, something personal. He didn't know what exactly. Her tone, her look, that calm certainty. But it took his breath away. He looked around. No one nearby. Just her. And her words, hanging between them like an invisible thread from the past. "What's your name?" he asked gently. "Luna," the girl replied, and she smiled. "And you're kind, like in the book." And again, that calm, that faith, as if she knew something no one else did. Keanu felt something shift in his chest, a subtle brush of memory, barely there, but inevitable. And he didn't know yet that this encounter would become the biggest surprise of his recent years. But he already felt, from this moment on, he wouldn't be the same. "Where's your mom, Luna?" Keanu asked quietly, leaning closer to the girl. "There, She pointed with her hand toward the library. "She's talking to a lady about kids who don't have homes." Keanu paused for a moment. Her answer was so clear and calm that it gave him a small jolt of surprise. Not the kind of confused or imaginary response you'd expect from a child. This girl knew where she was, knew what her mom was doing. And yet, why was she alone? He slowly opened the car door, stepped out, walked around the vehicle, and stood beside Luna. She reached for his hand, without a hint of fear, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. He took her small palm in his, and she led him toward the entrance of the old library, completely confident, like she had known this path her entire short life. The door opened with a light chime. Inside, it was quiet, almost sacred. The scent of old paper, wood, and children's fingers still sticky with modeling clay. Lamps hanging from the high ceilings cast a soft glow over the long rows of shelves. Somewhere in the corner, a group of children listening to a story. A young woman, a volunteer, sat with them on the carpet, reading aloud with expression. "Mom," Luna called out, without raising her voice. The woman looked up, and her expression changed. First, shock, then worry. But when she saw her daughter holding Keanu Reeves' hand, the emotion shifted. She froze, as if reality slipped for a moment. "Oh my God," she whispered. "It's you." Keanu gave a gentle nod. "She knocked on my window, said I was her friend from the book. I thought I should make sure she was okay." The woman knelt in front of Luna. "You shouldn't run off from Mommy, Bunny. I would have been so worried if not for..." She glanced at Keanu again, still struggling to believe he was really standing there. "Although, it seems like today, you found a very special friend." "He's real," Luna insisted. "I told you." "You did," her mother smiled. Then she looked back at Keanu. "I'm sorry, she's a bit special, very observant, and it seems she has a sense for people she wants to be around." "What's that book she has?" Keanu asked, as Luna held it out to him again. The cover was slightly tattered, but colorful, with an illustration of a man in a dark coat, helping children and animals in an imaginary town. The hero had a beard, messy hair, and the same calm eyes Keanu often saw in his own reflection. He opened the first page and froze. In the lower right corner, a small autograph written in black marker, his own signature, and a tiny note. "For the Children's Room, East District Library. Stories are more than just fiction." "This," he began. The woman nodded. "Yes, this is one of the books you donated to the library many years ago. We still keep them in the children's room. Luna adores this one. She carries it with her everywhere. She says the main character is real, that he's out there somewhere. And now, she found you." Keanu didn't respond right away. His throat tightened. All those years of sending books under different names, without any fanfare, simply because he believed. Sometimes all a child needs is to see themselves in a good story to believe in something. And here she was, a child who didn't just see. She believed and recognized him. "I found him," Luna repeated, placing her little hand in his. "My friend from the book. He's here." Keanu closed his eyes for a moment, and he felt something break inside, not painfully, but like a wall that had long since lost its purpose. And through that crack, for the first time in ages, light slipped in. "Do you mind if I call someone over?" Luna's mom asked quietly, glancing from her daughter to Keanu. She should know. She gestured to a woman in glasses, her gray hair pulled tightly into a neat bun. The librarian approached, looking carefully at Luna, at the book in Keanu's hands, and finally, at him. "Mrs. Williams," the mom said, "it's the same book. And this is Keanu. The librarian leaned in, gently took the book, and opened to the first page. Her fingers paused over the autograph. She looked up and stared straight into Keanu's face. "You have no idea," she whispered. "We still can't believe it really happened. You didn't say anything. You came late at night, left boxes and disappeared. And in each one, books with your notes, children's stories, classics, fairy tales from around the world. You didn't even sign your full name, just from a friend. But this signature," she ran her finger over the autograph, "we've kept these books like relics." Keanu looked away. He never liked when his quiet acts of kindness became a reason for praise. All those years, he just wanted to be useful. And somewhere deep inside, a quiet part of his soul whispered that this was how he preserved a memory of someone small, of someone who never got to see the world. "Luna," the librarian turned to the girl. "You really love this book, don't you?" "It's my favorite," Luna nodded. "I ask for it every day, even if I've already read it, because he's in there, and I remember him, even if I've never seen him." Keanu felt something in those words beyond a child's intuition. His throat went dry. He looked at this child, who clung to a story with such faith, and suddenly realized she was exactly the reason he had left those books behind. Not for applause, not for recognition, but in the hope that maybe, somewhere, someday, one child would see the hero and believe in kindness. His memory carried him back to that day, the day he signed the first books. He was sitting on the floor of his home, surrounded by open boxes. Rain tapped against the window. In the corner, a small baby chair that never got used. He had poured a part of himself into each book, because he couldn't give it to someone who was gone. So he gave it to all the children at once. "You really don't understand what this meant to us," the librarian added, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Now, imagine what it means to her." He turned. Luna was standing beside him again, holding his hand. Her eyes looked at him as if she had always known, as if she had been waiting for this moment. "You remember the hero," he whispered. "I remember the kindness," she replied seriously. And Keanu couldn't say anything more. He simply squeezed her small hand, because for the first time in years, he felt his silence was speaking too, and that it was finally heard. "Read it for everyone," Luna said. Her words were soft, but certain. She sat on the carpet in the children's corner of the library, holding the book in her lap, looking straight at Keanu. Her eyes sparkled with expectation, with the kind of faith only a child could carry. And that faith, it disarmed him. Keanu froze. He was used to cameras, to stages, to hundreds of eyes. But this was different. This was an entirely different kind of attention. Not forced, not polished, genuine. And for that reason, scarier. "Luna," he began, hesitating. "I'm not sure Please." Her voice was thin, but there was a strength in it that Keanu couldn't ignore. "You're real." The library fell silent. The librarian turned around. The children, those who had been quietly drawing or holding their toys, began to look up, small eyes filled with curiosity. Luna's mom, standing in the corner, covered her mouth with her hand, and then, barely holding back her emotions, nodded silently. "Do it." Keanu sighed, and slowly lowered himself to the floor. It felt unusual. Not an interview chair, not a festival stage, not a movie set, but simply the ground, beside children, in a library where the scent of books mixed with childhood dreams. He took the book. His fingers trembled slightly as he opened the first page. "All right," he said. "But you'll help me, okay?" "Okay," the kids answered in chorus, scooting closer. Some still clutched their toys, others nestled in their mother's arms. But all had the same curiosity in their eyes. and Keanu began to read. His voice, it wasn't the voice of an actor trying to impress, not the image of a hero from the screen. It was the voice of a man who once signed an autograph, not expecting anyone to ever find it. The voice of someone who had been searching for answers himself. The story came to life. It flowed gently, with pauses, with intonations that made the children cling to every word. He wasn't speaking just to them, he was speaking to himself. With each page, each line of dialogue in the book, something inside him was being cleansed. Something old, long muted. The children were silent, motionless. Even the youngest listened with open mouths. In the room, there was only his reading, and a silence no one wanted to break. And when he read the final sentence, closed the book, and looked up, there was a tear. On Luna's mother's cheek. She didn't hide it. She simply stood in the corner and watched him. Then she whispered, "You have no idea how much she needed to believe in someone good." Keanu didn't respond. He couldn't. Words meant nothing next to that truth. He simply turned back to Luna. The girl was already sitting on his lap. He didn't remember when she climbed there, but she was there, as if she had always belonged. She leaned close to him and whispered in his ear, "I knew you were real." And Keanu closed his eyes again, because this time, he couldn't hold back the tears. And for the first time, they didn't hurt. They healed. After the children had left, and the library slowly began to return to its usual quiet, Keanu remained in the same spot for a while. Luna was still on his lap, pressed against his chest, as if she didn't want to let go of the moment where faith and fairy tale had merged into one. Finally, he gently stood up, carefully placing her on the floor. The librarian stepped closer, assuming he was ready to say goodbye. But instead, Keanu reached into the backpack he had left by the door and pulled out a neatly wrapped stack of brand new books. Different covers, colorful, glossy, with big letters. Children's stories from all over the world. "These are for you," he said, not looking directly, but rather between the lines. No signatures, just let them read. "We'll preserve them," the librarian promised, but Keanu shook his head. "Don't preserve them. Lend them out. Give them to kids who need stories, like she did." He turned to Luna. She stood beside her mother, still holding the old book. Keanu knelt down, reached into his pocket, and pulled out a brand new copy of the same story. The same hero, the same smile on the cover. But now, something more. He crouched in front of the girl and handed her the book. Luna's eyes widened, and she touched the cover as if afraid to damage it. "Your copy. Just yours?" he whispered. She flipped to the first page and froze. There, written in neat black ink, was the message. "For my little friend, who never stopped believing in kindness." "You wrote this?" she asked softly. "I did." "Then it's a real book." Keanu smiled. Not the smile for cameras or fans, but the kind born from depth, from something honest and alive. He gently touched her shoulder, stood up, and walked toward the door. At the threshold, he turned around. Luna stood beside her mom, waving at him with her tiny hand, the book clutched tightly in the other. He raised his fingers to his temple in a soft farewell gesture. He got into his car, started the engine. In the rearview mirror, he saw once more the warm light of the library, the silhouettes inside, and the little figure who still hadn't looked away from him. And without breaking his gaze, he whispered, "Thank you, Luna." Then he drove off, leaving behind only silence, the books, and the belief that kindness always finds its way back to where it's truly awaited. There are things that never make the front pages of the news. They happen quietly, between bookshelves, in the eyes of a child who believes in the impossible. in the heart of a tired man who wasn't looking for gratitude, but found something he'd long lost: the belief that kindness, even the smallest kind, has the power to change the world. This story is a reminder that one gesture, made long ago in silence, can echo through the years and touch hearts. That the most powerful light lives in those who never stop dreaming, and that all of us are heroes in someone's story, even if we don't know it. Do good and let it go, because somewhere in some library, a little Luna is already waiting for the one who once left her a page of light. Be sure to share your impressions of the story in the comments and write what conclusions you have drawn after listening to it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and I wish you all a good mood and see you in the new video tomorrow.